Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a powerful psychological framework, one that quietly shapes our closest relationships, from our parents to our partners and even our friends. It's called attachment theory.
You know, you've probably noticed how differently people approach connection. Some folks seem to build these intimate bonds so easily, right? While others, they might keep an emotional distance, really valuing their independence above everything else. And then you have people who crave closeness but are always afraid of being rejected. We see these patterns everywhere, and they really do define the course of our relationships.
Well, a really powerful explanation for all this is attachment theory. The basic idea is that our earliest bonds, with our parents or whoever raised us, they create a kind of internal blueprint. And this blueprint, it's a set of expectations and beliefs about ourselves and others that we just carry with us, subconsciously guiding how we act in relationships for the rest of our lives. To really get this theory, our journey starts with something incredibly fundamental, a universal human need. It's this deep drive to seek out security, comfort, and love. And it's not a luxury. It's a core part of being human, and especially in our first few years, it's absolutely key to our survival.
So this idea was first cooked up by a British psychiatrist, John Bowlby, back in the mid-20th century. What he argued was that our need to form these strong emotional bonds isn't just something we learn. It's an instinctive behavior hardwired into us through evolution. I mean, think about it. For a helpless infant, attaching to a caregiver is literally a matter of life and death. Biologically, it's about safety from danger, but psychologically, it's about finding a profound sense of security.
Okay, so how in the world did researchers actually see these blueprints in action? Well, the theory really got its scientific legs from a series of landmark studies that showed just how these early bonds get formed, and, amazingly, how they could be observed and even measured.
And this didn't just happen overnight. The whole thing evolved over decades. It started with Bowlby's initial ideas back in the 50s and 60s. Then, in the 70s, his colleague Mary Ainsworth developed this truly groundbreaking experiment that let her see distinct, predictable patterns in kids. And by the 80s, other researchers had taken that work and extended it to our adult romantic lives, showing just how long-lasting these early patterns really are. To see these patterns, Ainsworth created this really elegant experiment called the strange situation. Here's how it worked. An infant and their caregiver would come into a playroom. Researchers would watch how the child used their caregiver as a sort of secure base to explore from. Then the caregiver would leave for a minute, and a stranger would come in. But the really crucial part, the moment that revealed everything, was the reunion. How did the baby react when the caregiver came back? That reaction was the key to understanding their attachment blueprint. And this just brilliantly illustrates what attachment is all about. See, it's not just about who feeds you. Back in the 50s, Harry Harlow did these famous and kind of heartbreaking experiments with baby rhesus monkeys. He gave them two fake mothers. One was made of cold wire but had a bottle of milk, and the other was made of soft cloth but had no food. And the baby monkeys, they clung to the soft cloth mother for dear life, only running to the wire mother when they were starving. It was this powerful proof that what we crave is comfort, warmth, and emotional security above all else. So these early experiments started to reveal these very distinct patterns in how we bond. They were first spotted in children, but later on, they were adapted to describe the ways we connect as adults. And that led to what we now call the 4 primary attachment styles. In her research, Ainsworth found that about 2/3 of children had a secure attachment. They felt safe enough to go out and explore the world because they knew their caregiver was a reliable home base to come back to. The other third, though, fell into insecure patterns. About 21% were avoidant, they acted kind of distant and unbothered when their parent left, and about 12% were anxious and ambivalent, meaning they got super distressed and were hard to soothe even when their parent came back. Now, as we grow up, these patterns translate into our adult relationships. And the best way to understand them isn't as 4 rigid boxes, but along 2 key dimensions. First, there's attachment anxiety. Think of this like your internal alarm system for relationship threats. If it's high, you've got a deep fear of being rejected or abandoned. Then there's attachment avoidance. This is basically your comfort level with intimacy. If it's high, you feel kind of uneasy with closeness and you really prioritize your independence. Okay, so when you put those 2 dimensions together, you get the 4 main adult attachment styles. Where you land on this grid of anxiety and avoidance kind of determines your style. Someone who's low on both, that's secure. High anxiety but low avoidance, that's anxious preoccupied. Low anxiety but high avoidance, that's dismissive avoidant. And high on both, that's fearful avoidance. Let's break down what each of these actually looks like in real life.
First up, the secure style. These are people who are low in both anxiety and avoidance. They're totally comfortable with intimacy, but they're also fine with independence. So if their partner says, "Hey, I need a night to myself," a secure person doesn't panic. They trust that the bond is solid and they use that time for themselves. They tend to have a positive view of themselves and other people, they communicate their needs clearly, and they handle fights pretty constructively. Next is the anxious, preoccupied style. These folks are high in anxiety but low in avoidance. They really crave intimacy, but they're often afraid their partners don't want to be as close as they do. So imagine they send a text to their partner, and a few hours go by with no reply. Their mind can just spiral, immediately assuming the worst. This anxiety can sometimes make them seek constant reassurance, which, ironically, can end up pushing their partners away.
Then we have the dismissive avoidant style. These are people low in anxiety but high in avoidance. They see themselves as really independent, super self-sufficient. So in a relationship, if their partner tries to have a deep emotional talk, they might just shut down, change the subject, or say something like, "I'm not good with feelings." To keep that sense of independence, they tend to suppress their emotions and avoid getting too close, because to them, closeness can feel like losing their freedom.
And finally, there's the fearful avoidance style, which is high in both anxiety and avoidance. This is the most internally conflicted style of them all. A part of them deeply wants connection, but another part is absolutely terrified of it. They might start a new relationship and feel this intense connection, but as soon as things get serious, they pull away, because they're afraid they're just going to get hurt. They're kind of caught in this painful push-pull, struggling to trust other people, and often feeling like they're not really worthy of love. So why does understanding all of this matter? Well, because this early blueprint doesn't just stay in childhood. It solidifies into what psychologists call our internal working model of relationships, which is what we use to navigate our social world as adults. This internal model, think of it like a set of unconscious rules and assumptions that got built from thousands of little interactions with our caregivers when we were young. It gives us the answers to these really fundamental questions like, am I worthy of love? Can I count on other people to be there for me? And the answers your mind has landed on will basically predict how you act in your adult relationships, filtering every single interaction through that lens. But here is the most crucial point in all of this. While these patterns are formed really early and can be super stable, they are not a life sentence. Your attachment style is a blueprint, not a prison. With self-awareness, with conscious effort, and often through new, healthier relationships, it is absolutely possible to reshape these patterns and move towards a more secure way of connecting with people. Sometimes this is called earned security. And our drive to connect is just incredibly powerful. Research on infants who had the most confusing upbringings, those with what's called disorganized attachment, found something truly remarkable. Even when their caregiver was a source of fear for them, over half of these infants still actively went to them for comfort. That just shows how deeply ingrained our instinct to connect really is. It's a reminder that the motivation to change is always in us. Ultimately, understanding this whole framework isn't about slapping a label on yourself or other people. It's about gaining insight. It's about understanding the invisible forces that shape how you love, how you connect, and how you see the world. Knowing your blueprint? Well, that's just the first step. The real question is, what are you going to choose to build with it?